The third eye is real, but it's not what you think. Imagine for a moment that nestled deep inside your brain lies a tiny, mysterious structure that ancient civilizations revered as the very gateway to divine wisdom and spiritual awakening. This enigmatic organ, no larger than a grain of rice, has been hidden from plain sight, concealed by layers of flesh and bone, quietly influencing your sleep, your mood, and possibly even your perception of reality itself. Today, science calls this tiny powerhouse the pineal gland, but the ancients knew it as the third eye, a mystical eye that sees beyond ordinary vision. You've likely heard whispers of this so-called third eye, portrayed across cultures as an esoteric symbol, often depicted as an all-seeing eye embedded in the forehead, radiating an aura of sacred knowledge. The Egyptians, Hindus, Mayans, and countless other ancient cultures embedded this symbol into their artwork, temples, and sacred texts. For thousands of years, it has persisted as a powerful image of inner sight, intuition, and spiritual enlightenment. But what if this symbol was not merely metaphorical? What if the third eye was genuinely part of your biological makeup, tangible and real? Science is now uncovering startling evidence that the pineal gland, long dismissed as merely a producer of melatonin, a simple regulator of our sleep-wake cycles, harbors capabilities that border on the extraordinary. Astonishingly, this minuscule gland buried deep within our brains contains cells similar to those found in the retina of our eyes. Indeed, these photoreceptor cells can sense and respond to light, linking your inner world directly to the cosmos itself. How did ancient civilizations seem to grasp this profound knowledge thousands of years before modern science would even acknowledge the existence of the pineal gland? Did they intuitively understand something we've forgotten, something crucial to human consciousness and our connection with the universe? As you explore deeper into this revelation, consider that modern lifestyle and environmental factors are conspiring against this tiny powerhouse. The pineal gland tends to calcify over time, becoming harder, less functional, and progressively dormant, effectively silencing this once vibrant sensory organ. Could it be that our collective consciousness has been gradually dimmed by a physical barrier within our own brains, cutting us off from a greater perception and insight? Throughout this journey, you'll uncover truths that blend the boundaries between science, philosophy, and spirituality. We will explore precisely what this remarkable gland does, why its true capabilities have been hidden from mainstream awareness, and what we can learn from ancient traditions to awaken what might be humanity's greatest forgotten gift. Prepare yourself, because the third eye is not just a fanciful metaphor or an esoteric concept. It's a scientifically verifiable reality embedded within your own biology. And unlocking its mysteries may very well transform your understanding of who you are, what consciousness truly means, and how intimately connected you are to the universe itself. Now, let's step deeper into the mysteries of your mind, beginning with the astonishing biology of the pineal gland, the true third eye, hidden inside each one of us. Part 1. The pineal gland. A hidden eye in your brain. Hidden away in the geometric center of your brain lies a structure so small it weighs less than 150 milligrams. But its influence, both biologically and spiritually, may be far greater than its size suggests. This tiny organ is the pineal gland, and despite being overlooked for much of modern history, it may be the most mysterious and misunderstood part of the human body. At first glance, the pineal gland appears modest, a pine cone-shaped mass nestled deep between the two hemispheres of the brain, tucked into a groove where the two halves of the thalamus join. But look closer, and you'll find something far more fascinating. This gland, long associated with regulating our circadian rhythms through the production of melatonin, exhibits a surprising number of characteristics shared with our eyes. In fact, in many vertebrate species, such as lizards and amphibians, it is a type of eye, a literal third eye. A forgotten organ with eye-like qualities. Let's begin with the science. The pineal gland is part of the epithalamus, which itself is part of the diencephalon, a region of the brain that plays a role in consciousness, sleep, and sensory interpretation. The gland is richly supplied with blood, even more so than much of the brain, and it is not protected by the blood-brain barrier. That alone makes it unusual. But what truly sets it apart is its photoreceptive cells. Yes, photoreceptors, just like the rods and cones in your eyes. In some species of fish, amphibians, and reptiles, the pineal gland serves as a parietal eye, an organ capable of sensing light and dark. This so-called third eye is positioned right on top of the head and can detect changes in light intensity, helping regulate circadian rhythms and hormonal cycles. In the tuatara, a rare reptile found in New Zealand, this third eye isn't symbolic, it's literal. It has a lens, a retina, and a rudimentary optic nerve. It sees. Although human pineal glands don't sit on the scalp or grow retinas, embryonic development reveals something stunning. The pineal gland forms from tissue that is also used to build the eyes. Evolutionarily, it shares a common origin with the actual eyes in your head. The tissue types are remarkably similar. In fact, in some mammals, remnants of pineal photoreceptor proteins, specifically proteins sensitive to light, have been found, hinting at a vestigial light-sensing function that once may have played a far larger role. Melatonin, more than sleep. When most people think of the pineal gland, they think of melatonin, a hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. Produced in response to darkness, melatonin tells your body it's time to rest. It affects mood, energy levels, and overall circadian alignment. Jet lag, insomnia, seasonal depression, all are linked in some way to melatonin and therefore to the pineal gland. But some researchers argue that melatonin's role is just the tip of the iceberg. Emerging studies suggest it may also influence DNA protection, anti-aging pathways, and even psychedelic experiences. This opens a fascinating door. Could the pineal gland be acting as a kind of biological antenna, not just for light, but for more subtle energies and frequencies? The bridge between light and perception. Here is where the science begins to blend into the unknown. Though the pineal gland sits deep inside the brain, it still responds to light, but not directly. It receives light cues from the retina, which sends signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. This master clock then tells the pineal gland when to produce melatonin. However, the pineal gland is not a passive receiver. Studies have shown that it plays an active role in modulating brainwave activity, especially during states of meditation, dreaming, and deep sleep. Some neuroscientists propose that it may interact with other structures, such as the limbic system that governs emotion and memory, in complex and not yet fully understood ways. DMT, a molecule of mystery. Perhaps the most controversial and tantalizing aspect of the pineal gland is the theory that it produces DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. This naturally occurring psychedelic compound is found in many plants and animals and is known for inducing powerful altered states of consciousness. A groundbreaking study in 2013 found measurable levels of DMT in the pineal glands of lab rats. While it's still under debate whether the same occurs in humans, the idea is now part of scientific discussion. If true, it could explain why certain near-death experiences, mystical visions, and out-of-body phenomena feel so vivid and real. The pineal gland, then, might not just regulate sleep, it might unlock doors of perception beyond what we currently understand. DMT, melatonin, and serotonin are all tryptamine-based molecules. The pineal gland has enzymes to produce them all. It may, in theory, synthesize DMT in moments of extreme stress, meditation, or deep dreaming. While more research is needed, the implications are enormous. This tiny gland could be the source of humanity's most profound spiritual encounters. A seat of the soul? Centuries before neuroscience had a name for it, René Descartes, the French philosopher and mathematician, famously declared the pineal gland to be the seat of the soul. He believed it was the location where the physical body and the non-physical mind intersect. While this notion was ridiculed for many years as mystical speculation, the more we learn about the pineal gland, the less absurd it sounds. Descartes pointed out that the pineal gland is singular in the brain, unlike most structures, which are mirrored on both hemispheres. He saw this as evidence of its unique role. Now, as neuroscience begins to explore consciousness, subjective experience, and non-ordinary states, the pineal gland keeps reappearing, like a shadow that science can't quite eliminate. So why don't we know more? Given its potential importance, why isn't the pineal gland front and center in our medical and educational systems? One reason is that it has been historically under-researched. Small in size and long assumed to have only a minor hormonal role, it was neglected for decades. Another reason may be cultural. Modern science has often dismissed anything remotely spiritual as pseudoscience, and yet the pineal gland sits precisely at the intersection between biology and mystery, chemistry and consciousness. Only recently has research begun to catch up with the ideas that mystics, yogis, and shamans have whispered about for millennia. In summary, the pineal gland is far more than a sleepy little switch that tells us when to go to bed. It is an ancient, evolutionarily preserved structure with optical roots, chemical magic, and, potentially, doors to dimensions of the human experience we've barely begun to understand. As we move forward, we will see how this third eye has been revered across time, how it connects to ancient wisdom, and why reclaiming our awareness of it might be one of the most important steps toward awakening a deeper form of intelligence within. Let us now journey back to the deserts of Egypt, the temples of India, and the jungles of Mesoamerica, where civilizations long past may have already discovered what science is now beginning to remember.
Part 2. The Ancient Eye. Did our ancestors know? Long before modern science peered into the skull to identify the pineal gland, long before microscopes and neuroimaging, our ancestors were drawing eyes, mystical, all-seeing eyes, on walls, monuments, and sacred scrolls. But they weren't just eyes. They were placed in strange positions, floating between brows, engraved atop temples, etched into crowns of deities. Why did so many ancient cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, depict this mysterious eye? Could it be that they knew something modern science has only recently begun to rediscover? Let's take a journey into the past, across continents and civilizations, to uncover what the ancients might have understood about the third eye, and how closely their symbols align with what we now call the pineal gland. Egypt, the eye of Horus and the brain of enlightenment. The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with eyes, especially the Eye of Horus, also known as the Ujjat. It was a symbol of protection, power, healing, and divine insight. But hidden beneath its mythology is something startling. The Eye of Horus, when overlaid onto a sagittal cross-section of the human brain, perfectly aligns with the pineal gland, the corpus callosum, the thalamus, and surrounding neural structures. Coincidence, or anatomical knowledge beyond their time? The shape of the Eye of Horus contains elements that mirror the pineal region with uncanny accuracy. The tear-shaped curve aligns with the pineal gland's location. The spiral at the end reflects the pituitary stalk. How could a civilization that never dissected human brains have drawn this so precisely? Some Egyptologists argue this is symbolic, artistic coincidence, but others, historians, neurologists, mystics, believe the Egyptians may have had esoteric knowledge of the brain's architecture passed down through oral traditions or trance-based inner exploration. After all, the ancient Egyptian priesthood practiced rituals of meditation, sensory deprivation, and altered states of consciousness, methods which, as we now know, directly stimulate the pineal gland. India, the Ajna chakra, and the seat of inner sight. In Hinduism and yogic traditions, the third eye is not metaphorical, it's a fundamental part of spiritual anatomy. Known as the Ajna chakra, located between the eyebrows, this energy center is believed to govern intuition, insight, and higher consciousness. It is often activated through practices like meditation, chanting mantras, and pranayama breathing, all of which have been shown to affect melatonin levels and brainwave states associated with the pineal gland. Descriptions of the Ajna chakra often include sensations of inner light, vivid colors during meditation, and a sense of seeing beyond the physical, remarkably similar to experiences linked to DMT, dream states, and pineal activity. Even the mudras, or hand gestures, and bandhas, or energy locks, in yoga are designed to redirect prana, or life force, toward the brain, especially to this central region. But how could ancient yogis, without access to modern neuroscience, describe these internal mechanisms so accurately? Could thousands of years of inward observation have led them to discover a biological and energetic truth that the pineal gland is not just real, but essential to spiritual evolution? Mesoamerica, the serpent and the eye of the gods. Across the Atlantic, in the temples of the Maya and Aztec civilizations, we again find the motif of the third eye, often hidden in plain sight. Feathered serpents like Quetzalcoatl, gods of wisdom and cosmic vision, are depicted with circular eyes radiating light, or with serpentine energy rising from the spine to the head, a symbol almost identical to the Kundalini energy described in Indian texts that activates the third eye. In the center of many Mesoamerican temples lies the vision serpent, which was believed to grant divine messages to shamans. The serpent, a universal symbol of energy and transformation, often coils toward a central point in the head, a strong metaphor for the pineal gland. Shamans in these cultures used plant-based psychedelics, many containing DMT-like compounds, to induce visionary states, during which they reported seeing light beings, hearing cosmic sounds, and gaining insight far beyond ordinary comprehension. Whether by ritual, herbs, or meditation, these ancient people were activating a portal within themselves, a portal modern science may now identify as the pineal gland. China, the Dantian and inner alchemy. In Taoist traditions, particularly in Qigong and internal alchemy, energy is cultivated in three centers called Dantian. The upper Dantian, located in the center of the forehead, is the seat of spiritual vision, wisdom, and connection to the Tao. Though not directly linked to the pineal gland in name, Taoist masters describe the upper dantian as a luminous center, the place where heavenly energy descends and spiritual clarity arises. Practices such as microcosmic orbit meditation, breathwork, and sexual energy transmutation were all aimed at refining energy to ascend and awaken this center. Once again, we see an uncanny overlap, a gland hidden in the brain, activated by stillness, awareness, and energetic discipline, resulting in visions, clarity, and unity with the cosmos. Christianity and the single eye. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." Matthew 6:22. Many mystics and scholars have interpreted this single eye as a reference to the third eye, the inner vision that leads to spiritual enlightenment. Early Christian mystics practiced forms of contemplation, silence, and inward prayer that closely mirror Eastern meditation. The pineal gland, as the single, central gland with eye-like structures, may be this eye that fills the body with light. Light not from the sun, but from inner awakening. Even Renaissance artworks, such as those by Leonardo da Vinci, reveal anatomical sketches with attention drawn to the brain's center, particularly the thalamus and pineal region. These depictions hint at a hidden knowledge, once sacred, now forgotten. A universal symbol, a universal truth. How is it possible that cultures separated by time, geography, language, and belief systems all arrived at the same idea that there is an inner eye, a point of spiritual perception located in the head, linked to higher understanding? The evidence suggests that the third eye is not a modern invention or New Age fantasy, but an ancient truth. Whether it's the Eye of Horus, the Ajna Chakra, the serpent vision, or the single eye of Scripture, humanity has always reached for the same symbol. And symbols, as Carl Jung once said, arise from the collective unconscious, deep truths that the soul recognizes even when the mind forgets. The ancients may not have had MRIs or molecular biology, but they had direct experience. Through altered states, ritual, fasting, and silence, they entered the inner worlds, and what they discovered was consistent across cultures: a luminous center, an eye beyond eyes, a vision that sees not with light, but with understanding. Perhaps they didn't know the term pineal gland, but they knew it. They felt it. They drew it. They built temples to it. And maybe, just maybe, we are the ones who forgot.
Part 3. Photoreceptors in darkness. How the pineal gland senses light. If the pineal gland is buried deep inside the brain, surrounded by dense bone and tissue, how could it possibly have anything to do with light? Light, after all, doesn't penetrate the skull. And yet, the pineal gland is light sensitive. Not metaphorically, literally. This is one of the most curious and least understood aspects of the pineal gland. While it no longer functions as a third eye in the literal sense in humans, its evolutionary past reveals that it once may have been a light-detecting organ, and in some ways still is. To understand this, we must look deeper, not just at human biology, but across species and evolutionary timelines. Photoreceptor proteins, the eye within. Photoreceptors are specialized cells that respond to light. In your retina, these are rods and cones. They allow you to perceive shape, motion, and color. These cells contain proteins called opsins that react to photons of light and send signals to the brain. Here's where things get strange. The pineal gland contains similar proteins. In many animals, especially reptiles, amphibians, and certain fish, the pineal gland expresses photoreceptive molecules. These animals use the gland to detect environmental light and even regulate their camouflage responses and mating behaviors based on day-night cycles. In fact, their pineal gland is not just a gland, it's also an eye. This third eye, or parietal eye, has a retina-like structure, complete with photoreceptor cells, a lens, and sometimes even a primitive cornea. It sits just under the surface of the skull and can directly sense ambient light. Evolutionarily, this suggests that early vertebrates may have relied on this eye to survive in changing light conditions. The human connection. In humans, the pineal gland no longer directly receives light through the skull, but it still responds to light indirectly, through an intricate chain of neurological events. Here's how it works. Light enters the eyes and hits the retina. Signals are sent to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, in the hypothalamus, the brain's master clock. The SCN sends signals through the sympathetic nervous system to the pineal gland. In response, the pineal gland suppresses melatonin production during daylight and releases melatonin in darkness. This complex system means that your pineal gland is constantly informed about the light-dark cycle, even though it never sees light directly. But what if that's not the whole story? Some researchers believe that vestigial photoreceptors, light-sensitive molecules left over from evolutionary ancestors, may still reside within the human pineal gland. In other words, the hardware is still there, even if it's not fully active. There have been studies showing that pineocytes, cells in the pineal gland, contain enzymes and proteins similar to retinal cells. These may not form a complete visual system, but they suggest a dormant capacity, like an eye that has gone silent but never forgotten how to see. Seeing without eyes. Biological light perception. Here's where things get even more intriguing. There's a growing body of research suggesting that some forms of light and energy might be perceived not just through the eyes, but through the body itself, what some researchers call extraocular photoperception. Certain animals can sense light with their skin. Plants, fungi, and even bacteria respond to light despite lacking eyes. Human skin contains light-sensitive proteins that affect circadian rhythms, hormonal regulation, and even mood. Could it be that the pineal gland, too, responds to biophotons, ultra-weak light emissions within the body? Recent studies in biophotonics suggest that the human body emits faint light as part of cellular metabolism. These biophotons are generated by the mitochondria and may be involved in cellular communication, especially in the brain. Some theorists propose that the pineal gland could be both a receiver and emitter of biophotons, acting as a quantum light center within the brain. While this is still speculative, it offers a radical new way of thinking about consciousness, not just as electrical or chemical, but as luminous. Melatonin, light, and the cycles of life. At the core of the pineal gland's light sensitivity is its role in producing melatonin. This hormone doesn't just help you sleep, it orchestrates a symphony of biological rhythms. It regulates body temperature, immune function, and metabolism. It influences reproductive hormones in animals and possibly humans. It helps defend against oxidative stress and inflammation. It synchronizes your internal clock with the external world. In this way, your pineal gland becomes your inner light meter, constantly comparing the outside world's rhythm with your internal one. And when those rhythms fall out of sync, you experience insomnia, mood swings, and brain fog. Blind but aware. Pineal function in the visually impaired. A fascinating insight into the pineal gland's light sensitivity comes from studying blind individuals. You might think that without eyes, their pineal gland would have no way to regulate melatonin. But surprisingly, some blind people still maintain regular circadian rhythms, suggesting that their brain has found alternate ways of syncing with environmental light cycles. In contrast, Others suffer from non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder, where their internal clock drifts without light cues. This condition highlights how crucial the light-pineal connection really is and what happens when it's disrupted. The light of ancient eyes. It's worth remembering that ancient texts often describe inner light, visions, luminous beings, divine radiance, halos, and third eyes glowing with awareness. Mystics spoke of a light behind the eyes, or seeing with the soul. While symbolic, these metaphors may reflect real neurological experiences, possibly mediated by the pineal gland. Whether through dreams, meditation, trance, or psychedelics, many have reported seeing vivid internal light even with their eyes closed. Could this be the pineal gland responding to subtle internal stimuli, like biophotons, neurochemicals, or even consciousness itself? A dormant lens or a forgotten gateway? What if the pineal gland is not just a regulator of sleep, but a latent sensory organ, one that senses time, energy, and light at a level we've yet to fully understand? What if our skull doesn't shield it from light? It shields us from a deeper kind of perception we no longer know how to use. And what if, just like ancient animals and ancestral humans, we too were once able to see, not just with our eyes, but with our minds? As science continues to explore the intersection of biology and consciousness, the pineal gland stands as a tantalizing mystery, a relic from our evolutionary past, or the key to unlocking our highest potential. Part 4. The third eye and spiritual experience, connection to meditation. Throughout history, seekers from every tradition have turned inward in pursuit of something greater: truth, divinity, inner peace. They closed their eyes, sat in stillness, breathed deeply, and waited. What were they searching for? Not something external, but something within. A deeper reality, a greater awareness, a hidden eye that could see beyond sight. And over again, they reported the same thing: visions of light, expansive awareness, a sense of connection to the entire universe, and often a sensation of pressure or tingling in the center of the forehead. Today, science is beginning to catch up with this ancient wisdom. As researchers study the effects of meditation, breath work, and deep focus, a central organ keeps showing up in their data: the pineal gland. Is it possible that practices designed to calm the mind are also awakening the third eye? Stillness lights the flame. The pineal gland is not just influenced by light from the outside world, but it's also influenced by the inner state of the brain. When you meditate, especially deeply and consistently, several things happen. Brainwave activity slows from beta, busy thinking, to alpha and theta, relaxed and introspective. Cortisol, stress hormone, decreases, while serotonin and dopamine levels rise. Blood flow shifts from the prefrontal cortex to deeper brain regions, including the thalamus and pineal area. All of this creates the perfect neurochemical environment for the pineal gland to activate. Researchers have found that advanced meditators, such as Tibetan monks and long-term practitioners of Vipassana, exhibit heightened activity in brain regions associated with self-awareness, compassion, and sensory integration. Many of them also report experiencing vivid inner imagery, out-of-body sensations, and a glow or pulsing light behind the forehead. These aren't hallucinations, they're neurological responses, possibly centered around the pineal gland and its unique role in regulating altered states. From stillness to sight, DMT and the mystic state. As discussed earlier, the pineal gland may be capable of producing DMT, a dimethyltryptamine, a molecule known to induce powerful, vivid visions, feelings of unity, and a suspension of ordinary reality. While DMT is most famous for its presence in psychedelic plants like ayahuasca, small amounts are also found naturally in the human body, including possibly in the pineal gland. So, what does this mean for meditation? Several studies suggest that deep meditative states, especially those involving rhythmic breathing, prolonged stillness, and focused attention, may trigger the release of endogenous DMT, or at least stimulate the same pathways. Many meditators describe seeing geometric patterns, colors more vivid than anything in waking life, and even encounters with what they call higher beings or universal intelligence. In some cases, these experiences are indistinguishable from those triggered by psychedelics, yet no substances were used. The mind alone, under the right conditions, may activate this inner vision. Breathwork, focus, and the inner stargate. One of the most potent ways to stimulate the pineal gland is breath control. Ancient yogic texts describe practices like pranayama, which use breath to direct energy up the spine toward the ajna, or the third eye. Modern breathwork methods, such as holotropic breathwork and Wim Hof method, have shown measurable effects on the brain. Increased oxygen and reduced carbon dioxide shift blood flow and brain chemistry. Rhythmic breathing entrains brainwaves into theta and delta states, similar to dreaming. After 20 to 40 minutes, many practitioners enter trance-like states, report vivid visions, and even transcendental experiences. Dr. Joe Dispenza, a modern teacher of neurospirituality, teaches focused breathing aimed directly at activating the pineal gland. His methods combine ancient techniques with modern brain imaging, showing that specific breath and attention patterns increase gamma brainwaves and deepen coherence between the heart and brain, conditions ideal for triggering altered states. The sacred darkness, why silence matters. Across cultures, advanced spiritual training often involves retreating into darkness. Tibetan monks spend days in caves, Egyptian initiates descended into pyramids, and Taoist sages practiced in sealed chambers. Why darkness? Because the pineal gland is activated by the absence of light. In total darkness, melatonin floods the brain. Over time, this can lead to the production of pineal and possibly DMT, which both contribute to expanded perception. In darkness retreats, many people begin experiencing visions by day 3 or 4, including lights dancing across the inner field of view, encounters with ancestors or spirit guides, sensations of floating, flying, or leaving the body, a feeling of being part of a universal consciousness. Again, no substances, no technology, just stillness, silence, and the innate ability of the brain to awaken itself. The universal techniques. While every culture has its own spiritual path, many of them arrive at the same techniques for activating the third eye. Meditation, stillness, focus, breath equals pineal gland stimulation. Chanting, vocal resonance, especially deep tones like Om, stimulates the skull cavity, vibrating near the pineal area. Mudras and eye position, hand gestures and upward gazing, Shambhavi Mudra, focus attention toward the center of the brain. Fasting and detox, reducing physical input allows mental and spiritual perception to sharpen. Intention and visualization, imagining light in the forehead stimulates real neurological activity. These methods aren't magic, they're ancient neurology. What happens when the third eye awakens? While results vary from person to person, those who consistently engage in these practices report increased intuition, profound clarity, as if a mental fog has lifted, heightened sensitivity to energy, people, and truth, deep inner peace regardless of external chaos, a feeling of oneness with life and the cosmos. But perhaps the most powerful shift is this: they stop identifying with the surface of things.
They start seeing from within. This doesn't mean hallucinating rainbows or hearing voices. It means tapping into a deeper awareness that transcends logic, yet remains profoundly grounded in wisdom. The third eye is not a myth. For centuries, science dismissed the idea of a third eye as superstition. But now, neuroscience, chemistry, and meditation studies are painting a different picture. The pineal gland is real. Its light sensitivity is real. Its connection to altered states, to spiritual experience, to inner knowing, it's all real. Meditation is not a religious ritual. It's a neurological key. And when turned with sincerity, discipline, and presence, it may unlock the greatest mystery of all, who you really are.
Part 5. Calcification. Why your third eye goes silent. If the pineal gland truly is the gateway to higher perception, the third eye that countless traditions revere, then the most important question we must ask is, what happens when it stops working? In modern society, it often does. The pineal gland, for many people, becomes less active with age, not simply because of time, but because of a phenomenon that is both biological and deeply symbolic. Calcification. Yes, your third eye can literally turn to stone. But how? Why? And more importantly, can it be reversed? Let's explore the slow silencing of one of the most mysterious parts of your brain and why most people go their whole lives without ever knowing it happened. What is calcification? Calcification is the process by which calcium salts build up in soft tissue, hardening it over time. In the body, it can happen in arteries, muscles, kidneys, and even the brain. The pineal gland is particularly vulnerable. Over time, microscopic calcium crystals begin to accumulate in and around the pineal tissue. This reduces the gland's flexibility, sensitivity, and ability to produce melatonin and other key neurochemicals. By middle age, many people's pineal glands are partially or heavily calcified. In some elderly individuals, it's barely functional. Autopsy studies show that pineal calcification is extremely common. In fact, over 60% of adults over 40 show visible pineal calcification on brain scans. In heavily industrial areas, that number is even higher. Some studies suggest that 90% of Americans have some degree of pineal gland calcification. It's not a disease, it's not an emergency, but it may be the silent reason why so many people feel disconnected, spiritually numb, and out of rhythm with life. Why does it happen? The answer is multifaceted, but much of it has to do with the world we've created around us. Here are the major contributors to pineal gland calcification. 1. Fluoride exposure. Perhaps the most well-known suspect, fluoride is a mineral added to drinking water in many countries to prevent tooth decay. But fluoride is also highly attracted to calcium and has been shown to accumulate in the pineal gland more than anywhere else in the body. British scientist Dr. Jennifer Luke published a landmark study in 1997 showing that fluoride levels in the pineal gland were higher than in bones and teeth. Her research suggests that fluoride accelerates calcification, especially during adolescence when melatonin production is critical for development. Despite ongoing debate, many independent studies continue to link fluoride exposure to reduced pineal activity, disrupted sleep cycles, and early puberty. 2. Poor diet and processed foods. High sugar diets, processed foods, artificial additives, and preservatives flood the body with inflammation and oxidative stress. This environment supports the buildup of waste materials and mineral deposits, including in brain tissue. Excess calcium, especially from poor quality supplements or fortified junk foods, can also contribute to calcification.
Without proper balance from magnesium, vitamin K2, and vitamin D, calcium ends up in the wrong places, like your pineal gland. 3. Electromagnetic pollution. We live in a sea of EMFs, electromagnetic fields, from cell phones, Wi-Fi towers, and electronics. While the long-term effects are still being studied, preliminary research suggests EMFs may interfere with melatonin production and disrupt the circadian signals sent to the pineal gland. The result? A gland that is overstimulated during the day and underperforming at night, confused, tired, and losing sensitivity. 4. Environmental toxins. Heavy metals like mercury, lead, and aluminum, along with industrial chemicals like pesticides, BPA, and chlorine, are neurotoxic. These substances have been shown to cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate in fatty tissues like the pineal gland. Over time, the gland becomes sluggish, no longer a sensitive receiver of light and subtle frequencies, but a dense, blocked relic of what it once was. The consequences of a silent eye. When the pineal gland is calcified, it doesn't just stop producing melatonin, it begins to lose its deeper functions, its inner compass, a spiritual antenna, and a harmonizer of body and mind. Here's what may happen. Sleep becomes shallow, irregular, or non-restorative. The dream world fades, leaving you disconnected from inner insight. Your natural sense of timing, intuition, and gut feeling weakens. A subtle sense of disconnection sets in, like you're drifting through life without meaning or clarity. Deep meditation becomes harder, visions become rare, and inner stillness feels distant. It's as if the window to something greater has been clouded with dust. And perhaps the most tragic part is, you don't even realize it's happening. Early signs of pineal decline. Many people suffer the effects of pineal dysfunction without ever knowing it. Here are some signs to look out for. Chronic insomnia or irregular sleep patterns. Reliance on stimulants or sedatives to feel balanced. Loss of creativity or imaginative thinking. Feeling emotionally flat or spiritually apathetic. An inability to visualize or daydream. Lack of intuition or self-trust. A constant craving for distraction or noise. These symptoms may also overlap with other issues, of course, but when combined, they suggest that your inner light, your third eye, may be dimming. Is it permanent? The good news is no. Calcification is not a one-way street. While it may be difficult to fully reverse in later stages, there is growing evidence that the pineal gland can be revived, reawakened, and cleansed, especially if action is taken early. In upcoming sections, we'll explore how ancient practices, dietary changes, detox methods, and breath work can help restore the third eye. For now, simply acknowledge the truth. Your pineal gland is a living part of your brain. It responds to what you eat, how you breathe, where you live, and what you believe. And while it may have gone silent, it's still there, waiting.
Part 6. The Lost Connection. What have we forgotten? There was a time, before electricity, before skyscrapers, before screens, when human beings lived in rhythm with the sun, the stars, and the silence between. A time when dreams were considered sacred, when intuition guided kings and healers, and when stillness wasn't feared, it was revered. In that world, the mind was not merely a problem solver, it was a receiver, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. And at the center of that bridge sat the pineal gland, the third eye. But as the centuries passed and civilization marched forward, something subtle but profound began to change. We didn't just lose knowledge, we lost connection.
This section explores what that loss truly means and how forgetting the third eye has shaped the modern mind, body, and soul. The forgotten intelligence. Modern society is obsessed with data, logic, and external validation. We prize what can be measured, repeated, and proven in a lab. But the pineal gland was never about outer knowledge. It was about inner knowing. And inner knowing doesn't speak in numbers. It speaks in intuition, imagination, symbol, dreams, insight without explanation. The ancients valued these forms of intelligence. They saw dreams as messages, silence as communication, and visions as valid experiences, not hallucinations. But today, most of us have been conditioned to ignore these subtle senses. When you get a gut feeling, you dismiss it. When your heart warns you, you overthink it. When synchronicity appears, you call it coincidence. This is not accidental. It's a symptom, a sign that your inner eye has dimmed. The mind without the third eye. A pineal gland that is underactive or calcified doesn't just affect sleep, it affects perception itself. Here's how that might look. Life feels flat, like something is always missing, but you can't name what. Creativity becomes harder. Your imagination feels muted. You feel disconnected from your purpose, like you're drifting. You seek stimulation constantly, music, screens, conversation, not because you're curious, but because you're uncomfortable in stillness. Spiritual concepts feel abstract, hollow, or distant. It's as if you're cut off from your own depth, trapped in a surface-level version of yourself. And the worst part? You think this is normal. Children are born with it. If you want proof that the third eye is real, look into the eyes of a child. Children are deeply intuitive, wildly imaginative, and often speak of things adults dismiss, seeing colors around people, having vivid dreams, talking to invisible friends. They are deeply connected to their internal world and effortlessly blend it with reality. This isn't fantasy, it's natural perception before the world tells them to shut it off. But over time, we train children to ignore their inner world. Stop daydreaming. That's not real. Be logical. Prove it. We slowly teach them that truth comes only from outside, from books, teachers, rules, screens, not from within. By the time they're adults, their third eye is no longer active. Their inner compass is broken. They may be successful, but they've lost access to something irreplaceable, the wisdom of their own soul. What did ancient cultures know that we don't? Across the ancient world, sacred practices were designed to nurture the inner eye, not suppress it. Dream temples in ancient Greece, where seekers slept to receive divine messages. Vision quests among native tribes, where fasting and solitude brought deep insights. Initiation rites in Egypt, India, and Tibet, all focused on silence, darkness, breath, and symbol. Herbal medicines used not to escape reality, but to see it more clearly. These people weren't naive. They weren't primitive. They were tuned to frequencies we no longer hear, and their reverence for the third eye wasn't based on superstition. It was based on experience. They lived in conversation with the invisible, and we have forgotten how to listen. The price of disconnection. What happens to a species that disconnects from its spiritual core? You see it all around you. Anxiety, depression, burnout. People chasing money but feeling empty. Lives full of noise but devoid of meaning. Endless scrolling, endless distraction, endless avoidance of self. We've built incredible machines, but we've forgotten how to be still. We've mapped the galaxies, but we've lost the way back to our own inner universe. And the pineal gland, which was once a beacon of insight, has become a neglected, atrophied node, quietly shutting down while we stare at glowing rectangles and call it life. But all is not lost. The good news is that the third eye isn't truly gone. It's dormant, not destroyed. Asleep, not dead. Like an old radio buried in dust, it's still capable of receiving signals. But to hear them, we must remember stillness, reclaim silence, return to rhythm, respect our inner world. You don't need to retreat to a monastery or live in a cave. You just need to pause, to make space for the forgotten language of your soul, to trust that what arises from within is not madness, but memory, a memory of what it means to be fully human, a being not only with thoughts, but with vision. You were never meant to be blind inside. The third eye is not a superstition. It's not a fantasy. It's a faculty, one that humans have used for millennia to navigate the invisible layers of reality. Yes, it has been shut down. Yes, it has been calcified, but it's also waiting for you to stop running, to stop seeking outside, to remember what you were born with. And when you do, when you look inward, breathe deeply, and feel that soft pulse in the center of your mind, you'll know you didn't lose the third eye. You simply forgot to open it.
Part 7. Activating the third eye. Ancient practices meet modern science. The third eye may have fallen silent in most people's lives, but it was never meant to stay that way. Across cultures, religions, and centuries, humanity has passed down practices that stimulate, cleanse, and awaken this sacred center of inner perception. And now, for the first time in history, modern science is beginning to validate what mystics have always known. This is not about superstition. This is not blind faith. This is about neurobiology, breath, light, and conscious attention, tools that anyone, anywhere, can use to reawaken their pineal gland and reclaim the vision within. Let's explore the ancient techniques that activate the third eye and the surprising ways science is starting to explain why they work. 1. Meditation, the gateway within. Among all the practices, meditation remains the most universal and foundational. In every tradition, from Tibetan Buddhism to Christian monasticism, from Hindu dhyana to Sufi zikr, sitting in silence, focusing inward, and observing the breath has been the key to awakening deeper consciousness. And now we know why. Studies using EEG and fMRI scans show that consistent meditation reduces activity in the default mode network, DMN, the part of the brain responsible for ego and constant thinking. Increases gamma wave activity, high-frequency brain waves linked to intuition, insight, and heightened awareness. Enhances coherence between the left and right hemispheres. Stimulates deep brain structures, including the thalamus and pineal gland. Long-term meditators often report sensations of pressure in the forehead, vivid inner imagery, perception of internal light,
moments of timeless awareness, all consistent with a reactivated third eye. 2. Breathwork, charging the inner circuit. Breath is not just for survival. It is a vehicle for transformation. Ancient yogis understood this. Through pranayama, they learned to control the flow of prana, life energy, through breath. By focusing and intensifying this flow, they could direct energy to the Ajna chakra, the center associated with the third eye. Modern science confirms that breathwork alters blood pH, creating biochemical shifts in the brain, stimulates the vagus nerve, calming the nervous system, increases cerebral spinal fluid pressure, which may influence the pineal gland physically, elevates DMT precursors, particularly during intense sessions. Techniques like box breathing, Kapalabhati, skull shining breath, Wim Hof method, holotropic breathwork can create sensations of euphoria, light perception, and even non-ordinary states of consciousness, all without drugs. 3. Sound and vibration, resonating the crystal. The pineal gland contains piezoelectric crystals, tiny structures that produce electric charge under mechanical stress, like quartz. These may allow the gland to respond to sound, vibration, and resonant frequencies. In spiritual traditions, sound has always played a central role in awakening the third eye. Chanting Om creates a deep vibration that resonates through the skull and stimulates the area around the pineal gland. Tibetan singing bowls and crystal bowls emit frequencies that align with the third eye chakra, around 432 Hz to 963 Hz. Binaural beats, auditory illusions created by slightly different frequencies in each ear, can entrain brainwaves and guide the mind into meditative, theta, or even gamma states. Repeated exposure to these vibrations can help decalcify and reactivate the pineal gland by gently shaking it awake from its dormant state. 4. Darkness and fasting, resetting the clock. The pineal gland is most active in darkness. It's in the absence of external light that it begins to produce melatonin and potentially other visionary compounds like pinealine or even DMT. Ancient traditions often used darkness retreats as initiation rites. Modern versions involve spending 5 to 10 days in complete darkness. Practitioners report intensified inner vision, vivid inner dreams and lucid dreaming, encounters with light beings or archetypal visions, a sense of leaving the body or merging with the infinite. Fasting, too, plays a role. Abstaining from food allows the body to redirect energy inward, reduce toxins, and reset hormonal rhythms, creating an optimal state for pineal gland activation. 5. Detoxification, clearing the lens. As discussed earlier, the pineal gland is prone to calcification, but there are methods, both ancient and modern, to cleanse and protect it. Helpful compounds and habits include iodine, helps remove fluoride and heavy metals, boron, binds to calcium and assists in decalcification, turmeric, natural anti-inflammatory and antioxidant, raw cacao, rich in magnesium and pineal gland supporting compounds, chlorella and spirulina help bind and eliminate toxins, avoiding fluoride through non-fluoridated water and natural toothpaste, reducing EMF exposure, turning off Wi-Fi at night, keeping devices away from the head during sleep. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. Every small step helps restore clarity to the third eye. 6. Visualization, Seeing to believe. Visualization isn't imagination, it's mental sight, and it stimulates the brain just like physical sight. When you imagine light at the center of your forehead, your brain responds as if you're actually seeing it. The more vivid your visualization, the stronger the neural pathways become. Daily visualization of a glowing indigo orb, a beam of light entering the forehead, a spiral vortex of energy in the brow center, can train the pineal gland to respond again. It's not superstition, it's neuroplasticity. 7. Sacred geometry and symbols. Symbols like the Eye of Horus, the Sri Yantra, the flower of life, and the pine cone, often associated with the pineal gland, have been used for millennia to focus the mind. Gazing upon these patterns can trigger deep meditative states, activate archetypal memories, and stimulate intuitive insight, all linked to pineal activity. These shapes are not random. They are language without words, designed to resonate with the architecture of your soul. Bridging science and spirit. In the past, people believed the third eye was magic. Today, some believe it's myth. But in truth, it may be mechanism, a system within you waiting to be remembered, activated, and mastered. Modern neuroscience is only just beginning to glimpse the power of endogenous psychedelics, brainwave entrainment, neuroplastic transformation through consciousness itself. Ancient traditions already knew. They taught not only what to do, but why. Because when your third eye awakens, you awaken, not to fantasy, but to reality beneath the noise. The path is open. The pineal gland may be dormant, but the path to awakening it has never been clearer. You don't need to leave your life. You need to return to yourself. Breathe. Be still. Visualize. Listen. Cleanse. Focus. And trust. The third eye isn't something you gain. It's something you uncover. And once it opens, you'll never see the world the same way again.
Part 8. The Science of Inner Sight, the Third Eye and Quantum Consciousness. For centuries, the third eye has been spoken of in poetic, mystical terms, as the seat of the soul, the gateway to higher dimensions, the eye that sees beyond time. But today, a new language is beginning to emerge, a language that belongs not to monks or mystics, but to physicists, neuroscientists, and quantum theorists. And in that language, the third eye may not be fantasy. It may be field-responsive biology, a structure designed to tune in not to just chemical signals, but to information itself. Could it be that the pineal gland operates not only as an organ of perception, but as a quantum receiver? Could the so-called inner sight be far more literal than we've ever imagined? Let's explore what happens when the world of mysticism meets the frontiers of physics, and why the third eye may be the most advanced instrument of consciousness evolution ever built into the human brain. Beyond biology, the brain as a holographic receiver. Most people think the brain generates consciousness, like a computer generates an image. But what if it's the opposite? What if the brain is a receiver, not a generator? An antenna that tunes into consciousness like a radio picks up stations. This idea isn't new. In fact, physicists like David Bohm, Carl Pribram, and Roger Penrose have proposed models suggesting that consciousness exists as a non-local field, a vast sea of information outside time and space. Your brain doesn't create it. Your brain accesses it. And if that's true, then the pineal gland, sitting at the geometric center of your brain, connected to light, sleep,
dreams, and altered states may be the key receptor. The pineal gland and piezoelectricity. Earlier, we discussed how the pineal gland contains piezoelectric crystals, tiny biological structures that generate electrical charge when compressed or vibrated. Piezoelectric materials are used in radios, microphones, and ultrasound equipment. They're also found in quartz watches, where vibrations keep time. Now think about this. Your pineal gland, located between the two hemispheres of the brain, immersed in cerebrospinal fluid and surrounded by electromagnetic signals, is filled with crystalline structures that respond to vibration. This isn't spiritual metaphor, it's physics. When activated through breathwork, meditation, sound, or even geometric focus, these crystals may begin to resonate, creating microcurrents that affect consciousness in ways science is only beginning to grasp. They may act as transducers, converting vibrational energy into electrical impulses, allowing the brain to receive data from fields we cannot currently measure. Quantum biology, the science behind the mystical. Quantum biology is a new field that explores how quantum mechanics, normally reserved for atoms and photons, may also apply to living systems. Some phenomena it investigates: quantum tunneling in enzymes, quantum entanglement in bird navigation, quantum coherence in photosynthesis, biophotons, light particles emitted by cells, especially neurons. Biophotons have been detected coming from the brain. The highest concentration? The pineal gland. These photons are incredibly weak, but coherent, like lasers. Some theorists suggest they may carry information, forming part of a bioquantum communication system inside the brain. This means that your thoughts, dreams, and meditative visions might not be mere hallucinations, but light-based experiences transmitted through a quantum field. The pineal gland, then, would be the lens through which these signals become visible to consciousness. The role of DMT, a molecular stargate. We return now to DMT, a molecule found in nature and likely produced in trace amounts in the human body. DMT has been dubbed the spirit molecule because of its profound ability to induce hyperspace-like experiences, out-of-body journeys, and encounters with non-physical beings or realities. In clinical settings, subjects injected with DMT report a sudden sense of leaving the body, entering vast geometric environments, communicating with intelligent non-human presences, a feeling that the experience is more real than waking life. Could the pineal gland produce this compound during birth, death, extreme stress, or deep meditation? And if so, does it serve as a portal, a biological gateway to other dimensions of existence? Quantum physicist David Bohm proposed the idea of an implicate order, a deeper layer of reality from which all physical things unfold. He compared it to a hologram, invisible, but holding all the information of the whole. Perhaps the pineal gland is the organ through which consciousness interacts with this implicate order, allowing human beings to download visions, knowledge, even divine insights that cannot be accessed through logic alone. Sacred geometry and frequency matching. Have you ever noticed that during deep meditation or dream states, complex patterns and geometries appear? Many people describe seeing mandalas, grids, fractal shapes, or even the flower of life, a symbol that appears across ancient cultures and is said to represent the blueprint of creation. These patterns are not random. They may be expressions of resonance. When your brain reaches certain frequencies, alpha, theta, or gamma, your inner perception may begin to synchronize with universal harmonic patterns. Sacred geometry, then, becomes a kind of language of the third eye, a way for the subconscious to organize and interpret non-local information. The holographic self. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram theorized that the brain stores information holographically. Memories, sensations, even consciousness itself may be encoded in interference patterns, like the shimmering lines you see in a CD. The third eye, then, could act as a lens, a focal point for interpreting the hologram of reality. When the lens is cloudy, calcified, perception becomes narrow and reactive. When it's clear, activated, perception becomes holistic, intuitive, and multidimensional. You don't just see the world, you see through it. You feel the connection between things, and you sense your place within a field of intelligence that is far greater than yourself, but somehow not separate from you at all. You are the interface. At the intersection of biology, vibration, and consciousness stands the pineal gland. It's not just a hormone factory. It's not just a spiritual symbol. It's an interface between the physical and the non-physical, the temporal and the timeless, the brain and the field, the individual and the infinite. And when it activates, not through magic, but through focused practice, it may allow you to perceive your existence in a way science is just beginning to model. Not as a body with a soul, but as a field of consciousness with a biological avatar. The future of inner science. As neuroscience, quantum physics, and ancient spirituality continue to converge, one truth becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Consciousness is not confined to the skull. It extends, it resonates, it interfaces. And the pineal gland may be our evolutionary tool to navigate that extension. Perhaps we were never meant to live only in 5 senses. Perhaps the 6th, inner sight, was always meant to be the bridge to our next evolution. Not technological, but spiritual. Not artificial intelligence, but activated intelligence, already within us.
Part 9. The pineal gland in culture. Hidden messages in plain sight. If the pineal gland is truly the third eye, our inner gateway to insight, perception, and divine connection, then why has this knowledge remained hidden from mainstream awareness? The truth is, it hasn't. It's been hiding in plain sight. Across architecture, art, corporate logos, religious iconography, and media, the symbol of the third eye, and by extension the pineal gland, has been embedded again and again, not as a coincidence, but as a deliberate whisper from the past. In this section, we'll explore how modern culture has not only preserved, but in many cases appropriated the symbol of the third eye, and why some believe the pineal gland is the most symbolically suppressed and spiritually protected organ in the human body. The eye symbol, ancient and modern. The most obvious and universal representation of the third eye is the single eye, often centered within a triangle, a sunburst, or rays of light. This symbol appears throughout history and is still used today. The Eye of Providence, a glowing eye above a pyramid found on the US dollar bill, often interpreted as a symbol of divine guidance or surveillance. The Eye of Horus, from ancient Egypt, symbolizing protection, wisdom, and spiritual awakening. It anatomically mirrors the human brain in cross-section, right over the pineal region. The Hindu Ajna chakra, represented by a lotus with 2 petals and a central point of light between the brows, associated with intuition and insight. Freemasonry. Many Masonic symbols, including the all-seeing eye, reflect hidden knowledge, inner vision, and the spiritual awakening of man. Christian iconography. Paintings of saints often show a halo, a radiant circle centered around the head, symbolizing divine illumination, possibly connected to the awakened pineal. This iconography is not limited to religious art. It has seeped into pop culture, branding, and media in ways that many dismiss as aesthetic, but may be far more deliberate. corporate logos and the third eye. Take a closer look at the logos of major corporations, tech companies, and media outlets. You'll begin to notice recurring patterns. Triangles with eyes or circles. Pyramids. Eyes hidden in plain sight, like in cartoons or film posters. Light beams emerging from a central point on the forehead. Some of this may be design trend, but in esoteric circles, it's believed that many influential institutions use symbolic language to communicate power, insight, and control over perception. Why would corporations reference the third eye? Because symbols have power, especially when the public doesn't fully understand them. By embedding the eye in logos, institutions may be asserting a subtle claim. We see, we understand, we control. Whether intentional or subconscious, the presence of third eye symbolism in logos suggests that someone, somewhere, knows its meaning. Hollywood and the third eye agenda. Film and television have long played with the idea of inner sight, altered perception, and awakening consciousness. In The Matrix, Neo is told to free your mind and awakens to the truth of reality, mirroring a third eye activation. In Doctor Strange, the main character gains a literal third eye after mastering mystical arts. In Lucy, the protagonist unlocks full brain capacity, gaining clairvoyant powers, seeing beyond time and space. In Avatar, the Na'vi race says, "I see you," not as a greeting, but as a recognition of the soul. Even cartoons like Gravity Falls, Rick and Morty, and The Simpsons include recurring symbols of the third eye, hidden pyramids, and glowing eyes. This isn't random. Whether used to mock, reveal, or desensitize, Hollywood continues to feed humanity subtle references to the power of inner sight, without ever naming the pineal gland itself. Religious institutions, revelation or suppression. Religions have historically held exclusive knowledge about inner awakening, and also, at times, suppressed it. In mystical branches of faith, such as Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Sufism, and Christian mysticism, the pineal gland, or third eye, is alluded to as the eye of the heart, lamp of the soul, or the light within. However, mainstream dogma often discourages personal spiritual experience outside of clergy or scripture. Direct access to divine knowledge, what the third eye represents, is frequently portrayed as dangerous, heretical, or even demonic. Why? Because an awakened human being is sovereign. They no longer seek truth from institutions, but from within themselves. A society of such individuals would be impossible to manipulate through fear or blind obedience. So instead, the symbols remain, carved into churches, etched into stained glass, painted into ceilings, but the meaning is buried. The eye remains, but closed. The pine cone, a clue in stone. Strangely, the pine cone, a biological cousin to the pineal gland in shape and symbolism, appears in architecture and monuments around the world. A massive bronze pine cone statue stands in the Vatican's Court of the Pineal, directly facing a shrine to Osiris. Ancient Assyrian carvings show gods holding pine cones to the forehead. Pine cone motifs decorate Buddhist temples, Catholic altars, and Masonic art. Why would a seed-bearing plant shape be so revered? Because the pineal gland is named after the pine cone, and the ancients knew it. The pine cone represents awakening, illumination, and fertility of the spirit. It is a symbol of inner resurrection, the blossoming of consciousness when the third eye opens. Music, art, and the psychedelic revival. In the 1960s and 1970s, the psychedelic movement brought pineal-related themes back into the mainstream. Artists spoke of seeing inner light, feeling connected to a cosmic intelligence, experiencing time as a loop or hologram. discovering a third eye that could witness everything with compassion. These experiences, triggered by substances like LSD, psilocybin, and ayahuasca, mirror those of deep meditation, breathwork, and mystical prayer. Today, with the renaissance of psychedelic science, the pineal gland is once again under the microscope, not just as a biological structure, but as a portal to expanded consciousness. Music festivals, visionary art, and entheogenic retreats often include third-eye iconography, signaling a quiet resurgence of inner awakening culture. So why is it still taboo? If so many institutions acknowledge the third eye symbolically, why is its function still ignored or dismissed? Because awakening the third eye returns power to the individual. A society where people see with clarity, feel with depth, and live from truth cannot be easily controlled. Consumerism depends on blindness. Politics depend on distraction. Media thrives on fear. And the unawakened mind is always searching outside for what already exists within. By keeping the knowledge symbolic, visible but not explained, control is maintained. You see the eye, but you don't know what it means. Until now. The message behind the symbol. Every time you see a single eye in art, architecture, or media, ask yourself, what is being shown? What is being hidden? What is the symbol trying to remind you of? Maybe it's not there to control you. Maybe it's a call to remember. Remember that you are not just flesh and bone. You are awareness. You are light behind the eyes. And that light has a lens. The pineal gland, the third eye, the forgotten jewel in the center of your mind. Part 10. Rediscovering the third eye. Implications for humanity. What happens when we stop seeing with our physical eyes and start seeing with the one that was always meant to look inward? What changes when millions of people begin to awaken their third eye, not just as a metaphor, but as a biological and spiritual reality? The answer is not just personal, it is civilizational. Because rediscovering the third eye is not just about mystical experiences, it's about reclaiming humanity's lost potential, our ability to live from clarity, connection, and consciousness. In this final part before the conclusion, we'll explore what a global reawakening of the pineal gland might mean, not just for individuals, but for education, medicine, science, relationships, society, and the human future itself. A new kind of intelligence. We often associate intelligence with information, what we know, what we remember, how well we analyze. But the third eye represents a different kind of intelligence. The intelligence of intuition, knowing without explanation. The intelligence of insight, seeing the pattern behind the chaos. The intelligence of presence, being so aware that noise cannot distract you. The intelligence of wholeness, feeling the invisible threads that connect everything. When the pineal gland awakens, these faculties begin to sharpen. People become less reactive, more centered, more curious than judgmental, more connected to nature and other people, less addicted to external validation. This is inner evolution, and it's contagious. When one person awakens, their presence affects others. They become a living reminder of what humanity is capable of. Reimagining education. What if schools didn't just teach memorization, but also taught meditation? What if children learned not only about history and mathematics, but about self-awareness, visualization, breathwork, dream journaling, emotional intelligence, energy awareness? These are not luxuries. They are core human skills. And yet they are almost entirely absent from modern education.
Why? Because a child whose third eye is active doesn't just obey. They question, they imagine, they create. And that is dangerous to systems built on conformity. But if we want a future defined by wisdom instead of algorithms, we must teach the next generation to see inward, not just outward. Redefining health and healing. A reawakened pineal gland could revolutionize how we approach mental and emotional health. Right now, millions suffer from anxiety, depression, insomnia, identity confusion, spiritual disconnection. Most treatments involve pills, distraction, or suppression. But many of these struggles are signs of a misaligned internal compass, a soul trying to speak through symptoms. The third eye, once activated, becomes a guide for self-healing. It helps people reconnect with their own dreams, desires, fears, shadows, light. By integrating, rather than escaping these parts of ourselves, true healing begins. And perhaps, as ancient traditions suggest, diseases that begin in the soul can only be healed by returning to it. Reshaping science and spirituality. For centuries, science and spirituality were at odds, but awakening the third eye may be the bridge. When scientists begin to measure biophoton emissions, brainwave coherence, quantum field interaction, consciousness beyond brain activity, they are stepping into sacred territory once reserved for mystics. And when spiritual seekers begin to observe breath, understand neurology, map the chakras to brain regions, study the electromagnetic field of the heart, they are honoring the language of science without losing mystery. This convergence could give rise to a new field, inner science, a discipline where meditation, intuition, psychedelics, and neuroplasticity are not fringe, but foundational. And at the center of it all, the pineal gland, where light, chemistry, and consciousness converge. Transforming relationships. When your third eye is closed, you see others as objects, things to fear, fix, blame, or possess. But when it opens, something shifts. You begin to see the wound behind the anger, the love behind the silence, the patterns repeating across generations, the sacred in the mundane. Relationships move from manipulation to mirroring, from power struggles to presence, from surface roles to soul recognition. You stop saying, "What can I get from you?" and start asking, "What truth do you reflect in me?" This is how the third eye heals not only the self, but the space between selves. Elevating collective consciousness. Imagine a world where leaders meditate before meetings, children visualize peace before exams, doctors treat both symptoms and soul. Technology is used to expand awareness, not shrink it. People feel connected, not through likes, but through presence. This is not utopia. It is possible, if enough people awaken. The third eye is not about seeing visions, it's about seeing through illusions. Illusions of separation, illusions of scarcity, illusions of division. When these fall away, what's left? A world that feels familiar, not because it's new, but because it's been waiting inside you all along. The third eye is a choice. In the end, awakening the third eye is not a magical event. It's a series of choices. To turn off the noise, to face the inner shadow, to sit with discomfort, to open to mystery, to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Every time you meditate, breathe consciously, trust your intuition, or question the narrative, you are activating it. not once, but again and again, until clarity becomes your default, until stillness becomes your teacher, until you no longer seek the light outside, because you have become the eye that sees it within.
Awaken your inner eye, the path forward. You were never meant to live in the dark, not the darkness of night, but the darkness of forgetting. For too long, the world has taught you to look outward for truth, for validation, for meaning. But there is a place inside you that has always known the way, a place not shaped by noise or fear or opinion. That place is the third eye. The journey we've taken together has not been about fantasy. It has been about remembering. Remembering that buried within the center of your brain, beneath the layers of doubt, distraction, and daily routine, lies a biological miracle, a compass, a lens, a receiver of truth. The pineal gland is not a myth. It is not a metaphor. It is a living organ, one that connects you to cycles of the earth, the rhythms of the cosmos, and the hidden language of your soul. And it is waiting. You have learned that this gland responds to light and vibration, that it is shaped like the pine cone revered by the ancients, that it may produce molecules of transcendence, that it bridges neuroscience and mysticism, that it has been symbolized, celebrated, and quietly silenced. But most importantly, you've learned that the third eye is not something you acquire. It is something you reclaim. To awaken it is not to become special. It is to return to what is already sacred. It is not to escape the world. It is to finally see it as it is, layered, luminous, alive. It is not to reject science or logic. It is to let them merge with silence, with breath, with presence. And in that merging, something begins to glow, not on your forehead, but behind your thoughts, at the edge of your attention, in the still space between what you know and what you've always felt. That's the I. So here is your invitation. Do not wait for the world to tell you what's real. Do not wait for the science to catch up to your experience. And do not wait for permission to trust what your inner eye sees. Because awakening is not a destination. It's a practice, a way of living awake, moment to moment, breath by breath. You are not just a body. You are not just a mind. You are awareness itself. And the third eye? It is the door, the window, the quiet mirror through which your true self reflects. You were born with this gift. You carried it through childhood. You buried it beneath noise and years. But now, you remember. And that's the beginning of everything. Awaken your inner eye. Not someday, not later, now.